How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm Jen Smith, your host, career coach, former corporate HR leader, and your guide for creating a heart-based career that feels aligned, fulfilling, and full of possibility. Today's conversation is one that is especially close to my heart. We are talking about creativity. Now, I don't mean creativity only in the artistic sense, although painting, writing, and dancing absolutely count. I mean creativity as a powerful force that can shape our lives and our careers. It's a tool for problem solving and self-expression, and it helps with resilience and healing and joy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the link between creativity and courage, especially when you're sharing something personal. We'll get into why creativity is essential in today's workplace. It's not just a nice to have. I'll share some practical ways to reconnect with your own creative spark, even if you haven't picked up a paintbrush in years. We'll get into the science behind creativity, which is fascinating, and then talk about how creativity boosts career fulfillment and might even open doors to new paths that you haven't thought of. So let's get into it. Lately, I've been reflecting on how creativity and courage go hand in hand. It's one thing to doodle in a notebook or journal in a private setting, but to share your work, your words, and your ideas takes guts. I give so much credit to all the artists out there. Creating something and putting it into the world is vulnerable. It means being seen. It means being open to judgment and critique or even silence. And yet, it also means offering something real, something from your heart that might make someone else feel a little less alone. One of the most personal examples of this for me was contributing a chapter to the book, Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go. This chapter meant revisiting parts of my story that I hadn't shared publicly, and it felt really raw, but also it just felt really right. This project was super meaningful to me and the other authors in the book. And I was reminded that when we create from a place of truth, it resonates. So if you're out there quietly working on something from the heart, whether it's a story or a song or a vision that you're bringing to life in a side hustle, I want to encourage you to keep going. The world needs your unique perspective, your voice, and your spark of new ideas. Now, growing up for me, creativity was everywhere. My dad is an award-winning graphic designer. He even helped me design my very first resume. My sister is a compassionate art therapist. My brother is a very talented painter. My sister-in-law is a super creative graphic artist. And my mom brings art to life in her garden. She plans the garden by color and seasonal bloom. So the blues come up first, and then the pinks, and then the whites, and it's just breathtaking. And for me, I've always loved to draw. Actually, fun fact, I once won a cash award in high school for a charcoal portrait of Will Smith that still hangs in the school hallway today. So yes, I was very into the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at the time. But looking back, I can see how deeply creativity was woven into our family life. But here's what I want you to know. You don't have to grow up in a quote unquote artsy family to be creative. Creativity is part of being human. So if you think about it, we build cities, we design systems, we come up with new ways to get dinner on the table with whatever's in the refrigerator. Creativity shows up everywhere. But somewhere along the way, especially in adulthood, we start labeling creativity as optional or extra, or even worse, we believe that we're not creative at all. But here's the truth. Creative outlets are essential. It's not an indulgent. Creative outlets reduce stress and support our mental health. They inspire growth and resilience. They build community and cultivate connection, and maybe even open new doors in your career that you might not have considered. And I've seen this time and time again in my coaching work. People who reconnect with their creativity often discover parts of themselves that were buried under job titles and promotions and these societal expectations and task lists and all of those things that make us forget who we really are. So whether it's painting or gardening or singing or dancing or learning something totally new, your creative time resets your energy. It helps build confidence and it allows you to think more expansively at work. So I want to share just a couple ways to reconnect with your creativity if you feel like you've lost that spark. First, one thing I've been noticing that I love so much is that there are art classes and workshops popping up all over the place. I've seen this over the last couple years. So maybe you could try a pottery class or pick up a watercolor set. A friend of mine recently joined a local improv group, which makes my stomach churn just thinking about it. I would be so nervous, but I'm so proud of her for doing that. So anything that gets you playing and experimenting would be a good place to start. Another idea is to revisit what you loved doing as a kid. Maybe it was putting on dance performances for your neighbors. Maybe you built incredible Lego worlds, or you loved writing and reading stories. That inner child has ideas worth listening to. And I always recommend starting very low pressure. So I love this story about a beloved community member who joined a weekly knitting circle. And what started as a hobby led to friendships. And then it actually opened a job opportunity through someone in the circle in a very niche industry. So you just never know. And then, of course, one of my favorite activities every season is creating heart art. So it's that vision board of how you want to feel in your work and in your life in this next season. It's not about Pinterest perfect images. It's just for you. Now, I want to shift gear a little bit and talk about the science. One of the most powerful things to understand about creativity is that it's not fixed. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's a skill, it's a muscle, and just like any other muscle, it can be strengthened and developed over time. This is where neuroplasticity comes in. Have you heard of this? Neuroplasticity is the brain's incredible ability to recognize itself, literally rewiring its connections based on what we practice, how we think, and what we experience. So this means that when you engage in creative thinking, whether that's brainstorming in a team meeting or writing out your ideas for a new project or painting or designing or even just daydreaming, you're creating new neural pathways in your brain. So this isn't just metaphorical, it's actually biological. And I just think that that is so fascinating. The more you practice creativity, the stronger and more accessible those neural pathways become. In other words, creativity makes more creativity. But here's something else that's fascinating. You don't even have to be actively creating something to build creative capacity. Research shows that reflective practices like mindfulness and meditation also strengthen the regions in your brain associated with creative thinking, especially the parts tied to imagination, insight, and problem solving. So think of it this way. When you slow down and tune in, your brain opens up. And when you give yourself space to wonder, you invite new ideas to the surface. And I just think that that is so fascinating. So yes, creativity can be trained and nurtured and expanded at any point in your life. It's not about being born a genius or producing a masterpiece or producing masterpiece after masterpiece. It's about showing up with that curiosity, experimenting, and giving yourself permission to create without pressure. Even small moments of creativity like doodling in the margins of your notebook or rearranging your room or thinking of a new way to approach a work challenge can build that creative muscle. And over time, those moments are going to add up. They reshape how you think, how you work, and how you see yourself. So if it's been a while since you felt creative, know this. It's not gone. It's just waiting to be reawakened. And with a little intention, you can build it back up to be stronger than ever. I remember being in my corporate career and feeling really stifled. I was constantly checking boxes, following process, delivering on deadlines, but something inside me felt real flat. I wasn't using all of my creativity muscles, and I felt like I just had so much more to give, more ideas and more heart, but the space just wasn't there. And of course, on paper, everything looked great. I was progressing and leading teams and hitting goals, but inside I was really craving something different, which was more expansive and more me. It was really that I wasn't allowing myself to show up fully, and I had unknowingly tucked away parts of me that made me feel the most alive. It wasn't until I really gave myself permission to reconnect with that creativity through journaling and drawing that I started to feel like myself again. And then I began to imagine new possibilities for my life and career, which is where Flourish Careers was born. So I realized that creativity for me wasn't just a nice to have, it was the key to feeling aligned and fulfilled. So if that resonates with you, you are not alone. And the good news is that that part of you isn't gone. It's just been buried under expectations and routines. So let's dust it off and see what it has to say. Now, on the other hand of all of this, I do hear a lot of times people say, I'm just not a creative person. And to that, I gently and lovingly say, I don't believe you. Creativity isn't just about art. It's about how we solve problems and tell stories, connect ideas, and make meaning in our lives. There's a Chinese artist who has a quote to the effect of, creativity is part of human nature. It can only be untaught. So if you've unlearned your creativity, it's time to relearn it with playfulness and curiosity and compassion, and most of all, permission. Now, let's talk about if you're in a job that feels restrictive or overly structured and you don't have the space for creativity. I want to share a couple different ideas to start reintroducing creativity, even if your workplace or your job doesn't feel very quote unquote creative. The first is to ask questions. So cultivate that curiosity. Be willing to explore or even be the one that asks the what if question, even when the outcome isn't clear. So I remember working with somebody and she always did this. She goes, I'm curious if we did this, what would happen? Or what do you think if we did this? And it just got us all thinking. Every single meeting, we were always cultivating that curiosity, that what if we did something a little bit differently? And it was building that creative muscle for all of us. Another idea is to capture your ideas. So use a journal or an app to track spontaneous thoughts and creative nudges. These tiny ideas often lead to pretty big insights. So I have a page in my notes app with the light bulb emoji that's just for ideas. And anytime something just clicks in my head, I go ahead and put it on that page and leave it for whenever I feel like I need to take a look at it again and build something from it. Another here is to embrace the process, my friends. It is progress over perfection. I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to where they're talking about a creative job or making a change or even just doing something different. And there's so much pressure for it to be perfect before they even start. So just give yourself permission to take that first step. Write the sketch, brainstorm the idea, draft the chapter, whatever it is, just start small and think to yourself that progress is more important than perfection. And I love the idea of making it a habit. So, my 5 minutes to flourish, daily 5 minutes of doing something for your future self, you could incorporate that into this creative process. So block creative time on your calendar. Even 5 minutes or 20 minutes a week makes a difference. And then the other idea here is surround yourself with other creative people. So maybe if writing is your thing, you join a writing group. I love all of these online groups that are out there. If you're interested in art, find a local art fair or join an online creative community for artwork. I just recently joined Heather X group for color and energy, and I'm super excited to connect and learn more about that. You can follow makers and innovators online. So these are just ways to surround yourself with more of what you're craving, and that helps spark more inspiration. So now I want to share a story about a beloved that I worked with a little while ago. We'll call him David. So David spent over a decade working in corporate finance at a large tech company. His role was stable, well compensated, and respected. But every time we talked, I could sense the weight in his voice. And one time he told me, and I'll never forget this, he said, "I feel like I'm living in grayscale. Everything I do is technically right, but it just feels off." So I just had this visual of living in grayscale and what that would feel like. So what he didn't share with me right away was that years ago, he used to write screenplays for fun. He loved storytelling and even took a screenwriting class in college. But once the pressure of adulting set in, he filed that dream under "it's not practical. It's not a practical path." And over time, the lack of creativity in his work really started to wear on him. And I hear this a lot from folks. And he wasn't unhappy because of his coworkers or the company. He was really unhappy because he wasn't using part of himself that needed to breathe. And through our coaching conversations, we explored how he might bring more creativity into his life without quitting his job and, running away from everything overnight. So he started small with an experiment of just writing for a couple minutes every morning before work. Then he joined an online writing group. Eventually, he submitted a very short script to this indie film festival. And guess what? It was accepted. And that moment sparked something. It reminded him that his creativity still had a voice and it deserved space. Fast forward a few years later, David is now in a role at a media company where he can use that creative development and that creative energy for educational storytelling and content. So he still uses his analytical skills, but he's using it in service of something that he cares about and that's more meaningful to him. And he also writes on the side very regularly. Now, this shift didn't happen overnight, but it started with a question. What if I give myself permission to be creative again? And that's all it really takes. One small, courageous step toward what lights you up. And if that resonates with you and you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. With my heart-based approach to career planning, will help you get clear on what makes you feel alive, reconnect with long-lost parts of yourself, think outside the boxes of just traditional roles, and design a path that feels fulfilling to you. So as we wrap up, let's recap what we explored today. Creativity and courage are deeply connected. You are inherently creative, even if you've forgotten it. Creative expression helps boost your well-being. It unlocks different career insights and reconnects you to a fulfilling path. Small steps like taking a class or journaling or low pressure playing and experimenting can make a big impact. And you can infuse creativity into your work and future plans starting today. So here's your gentle invitation for this week. Maybe you revisit something that once brought you joy. Try a creative outlet, even for just 10 minutes. Choose curiosity over judgment. And let your creativity guide you. See where it leads. Because creativity is not a luxury, it is an essential ingredient for your radiantly happy and healthy career. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. As always, you can find the notes, links, and reflections from today's episode on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. And if this episode resonated with you, be sure to tune in next week for a fabulous interview with Vasu Tolia. She is an extraordinary woman whose heart-based career path took her from the world of medicine into the world of art. It is a heartfelt and fascinating story, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Thank you again for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.